Hi, I'm Jill Deacon. Welcome to another episode of A Love Affair with the Unknown. I hope you're able to tune into part one of my conversation that we posted earlier this week with Lisa Raitt. She is an extraordinary woman dealing with extraordinary things. Her husband was diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's, and it has been a wild 9-year ride for her, loaded with uncertainty. We had a really emotional conversation about that we recorded back in January, and that's what we posted this week. But I wanted to speak to her again and follow up on all the unknowns she's dealing with, how she's dealing with them, and also have a conversation about the uncertainty in Canadian politics, another aspect of Lisa's life about which she's very passionate and involved. So, this episode, this part of my conversation with Lisa Raitt, is a follow up that we recorded this week. Well, hey, Lisa Raitt, welcome back to A Love Affair with the Unknown. Thanks for doing this again.
Hi, my pleasure. No problem at
Really
all.
wanted to follow up with you. And there's so much I want to dig back into. First, I want to get an update. How is Bruce? How is his quality of life right now?
So his quality of life is quite good, actually. He has not pretty much, he has 99% full-time care with him at all points of the day that he's awake. And that is on top of the care he's already receiving in a
Mm.
home. And that has made a significant change, I'm going to say, in his attitude and his engagement. He's got somebody coming in to talk with him or to him each day, rolling. He's in a wheelchair now, so he gets wheeled around. He can go to activities. He gets to have a nap like a normal person does, lying in a bed as opposed to slumping in his chair. And that quality of life actually keeps him going longer. So he's doing very well. Memory wise, it's still not going to be there, but he is happy when he sees me. I will tell you one thing though. There's a milestone that I've been waiting to happen. These are never good milestones, by the way, but there's one that I realize will happen one day, and it may have happened to me. And it's this: when I visit Bruce and I lean in, I will give him a kiss. He always puckers up for me. He always like it, and it's probably the most normal thing that's left between us. You know, that peck on the lips goodbye, that peck hello that you probably still do with your significant other. I still had that, and he still responded. And just before last week, I leaned in and there was no reciprocating kiss back. And I broke a little bit inside, I have to
Of
say.
course.
So that's the milestone
Mm.
that I'm going to miss. That's the last one, I think. That's the last one of our partnership and our intimacy. That would be the last one.
Oh, Lisa. I, I mean, I hear you say that, and I did listen back to the first half of this conversation, which we recorded, a few months ago, and I was struck, as I am now. I mean, so deeply by all the unknowns that you live with. And, life is
Yeah.
full of uncertainty for all of us these days, but you have this extra dose to deal with. How are you doing these days? I mean, that story's a heartbreaker. How is
Yeah.
your heart? How are you?
I think I have a better perspective on this disease, but you only get that by experiencing it over a long period of time. And the part of the reason why, Jill, I communicate with it a lot on it, and I thank you for having me on today to talk about it, is because I was kind of blind to the uncertainty of the disease at the beginning. And if anything that's frustrating, it's that when you get diagnosed, you want to know, how long does my partner have? How long until he no longer remembers me? How long until we can't travel together? How long until he's going to be in a home? And how long will he survive after he's in a home? And there are no answers, none whatsoever. You kind of like lurch day to day. So we are sitting in 2025, and Bruce went into the nursing home facilities in 2021. It's been 4 years. It's been 9 years since he was first diagnosed, and probably 13 years since we first started seeing symptoms. It's a long time. And as I reflect back, I find these milestones and I make a note of them because I think it's important to be able to share that with other folks that may be going through it. But every time one of them happens, you kind of, like I said, you die a little bit inside yourself, and it's it is what it is. I hate to put it that way, but it's just, that's my lot in life.
It's very generous of you to be thinking of other people and how you could help them going through what you're going through by sharing this information. And I know that does give you purpose. You are a public servant, you are a giving, thoughtful human. But 9 years of uncertainty is
Mhm.
that's ongoing. How does that how do you do that? Are you aware of what you do?
Mm.
I know you say it's day to day and you roll with it, but do you have a sense of what skills you're summoning to get through and put one foot in front of the other?
That's a great question. Um, so Bruce, we were told that Bruce had 7 years, and we're at year 9, and there's no sense that I'm going to lose him anytime immediately. Anything could happen. He could have a terrible illness, and he could die from pneumonia just by fluke. But the disease takes a long time. So I think the what I've learned is you can't rush this along, and things will happen in the time it needs to happen. And I've applied that actually throughout my entire life. I have always been a hurry up, make it happen kind of girl. And sometimes you can't force timing. And I guess I've learned a little bit of patience. And I've learned that there's no perfection at all. And the last thing I've learned is you can't worry about things you can't control. And I'll tell you the story. And people may think I'm heartless and cruel, but I'll tell you the story. For many, many years, I was of the mindset that I could not go on vacation more than an hour or two away. Because what happens if? What happens if Bruce dies? What happens if this happens? What happens if? And as a result, I put my life on hold for many years, didn't travel with my kids. 2 years ago, for my 55th birthday, we went on a cruise. First time we've ever done anything like that. And I had belt and suspenders of people on call to help in case something happened. And I had a plan of action of how to get home in a certain amount of time. Nothing happened. He was fine. And then Christmas came and I decided to go out east. And I usually said, I got to get back right away, but I don't need to get back right away. It's everything is going to unfold in the time that it's going to unfold. And the last part of it is if something does happen quickly, I can't stop it. And I could be on the other side of the GTA and not be able to get there as just as I could be in Edmonton, Alberta and not be able to get there. And it's not about being there in the last moment. It's about being there for all the moments before. And that kind of allowed me to be free to make decisions. And it's an uncertainty that I no longer am held to. Biggest uncertainty of all is when will Bruce die? It's the biggest one. It's the one I don't know. And it used to control every aspect of my life, personal and professional. And it no longer does because I've come to the conclusion that if I'm not there in that moment, it's not the end of the world. And I know, that's why I said, I know I may sound a little, people may find this to be really cruel, but it is, I've been living in a limbo for 5 years. And, what happens if I get Alzheimer's next? Am I going to regret the 5 years that I waited for him? Because there's a weird thing, Jill. People who look after people with Alzheimer's have a higher propensity to get Alzheimer's.
To add to the
Wild.
cruelty.
Yeah, it's wild. It's not contagious, by the way. I'm not
No,
being
I know,
crazy.
I know.
It's the isolation, it's all that kind of stuff.
You mentioned when we spoke last time that going into the room that had sat empty for, I think it was 4 years,
Hmm.
that used to be the TV room you sat in with Bruce, and you finally went back in one day after 4 years, and you immediately burst into tears, and you said, "And I
Hmm.
realized I still haven't dealt with this."
Oh yeah.
Have you continued? Have you since we spoke last? I mean, how are you dealing with it anymore now?
Every day it kind of surprises you. I was just on vacation with my kids. I'm sitting at the pool in Jamaica and they're doing something and I'm just kind of looking around and reflecting and I'm listening to music. I'm not distracted by social media. I took a detox. There's nothing, I'm not chasing news. I don't need to be the first person to hear something anymore. I'm just in the moment. And I look at all the couples and I see them celebrating their anniversaries and I see a newlywed and I see the people on their bachelorettes because it's a resort and that's who's there. And man, I started to cry out of the blue. You don't allow yourself to feel your feelings when you're in constant caregiver mode. And when you let that down for a moment because you're not in that mode, because you're allowed to be on vacation, it comes at you like a train and it hits you. And what I've learned is if you're going to cry, you're going to cry. Let it go. And sit with the feeling.
Mm.
It's uncomfortable, but that's what you do. So it just jumps out at you when you don't realize it. So to the point of, I'm not dealing with it. Um, you distract and distance and do everything else you can not to think about what could have been, what should have been, and what will be in the future. Um, you don't think about those things when you're in this kind of mode.
Well, and it's interesting too that you said that that happened when you didn't have your phone, because we all, whatever version of unknowns that we're dealing with, I think social media and our phones and devices and even emails and things are a version of distraction, right? That keeps us from sitting in uncomfortable feelings. And I think that's really extraordinary that you have, the way you articulated that you sit in really uncomfortable feelings when they happen, and they're going to happen, and you're aware of trying to push them away, but it sounds like you're also letting them in when they show up.
Only because I've been talking to a great therapist for 2 years who recognized that and has said this is what you need to do. But I noticed my use of my phone and social media as a distractive um, crutch when I started waking up in the middle of the night. Thank you, menopause. And I would, instead of going back to sleep, if I was having an uncomfortable thought, because your mind races at 3 a.m. to all kinds of dark places, I found myself constantly reaching for my phone and then I would scroll and an hour would go by and I'm still not sleeping. And then I think it literally was when I was on vacation is the recognition that I'm reaching for the phone to distract myself from my bad thought. But how many other times am I doing that? Am I doing that all the time? Like if I'm in a meeting and somebody says something uncomfortable, am I picking up my phone and scrolling because I don't want to deal with what somebody's saying in the meeting? And I'm just going to monitor and see if that's something that I do.
It sounds like your hardships that you've been going through, um, and uncertainty is making you stronger. Would you say that? I mean,
Mm.
how do you think that this experience has impacted you and your strength?
Mm. I am going to say that I was always this strong.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, what this experience does do, and it's not a positive, it numbs you.
Hmm.
Numbs you. It numbs you to good things. It numbs you to bad things because you experience so much bad that you don't want to feel it anymore. So everything, you want to keep everything at one even keel all the time. So the highs are lower and the lows aren't as bad because you're just constantly in that one space. I say I'm stronger because I'm not stronger because of what I went. I guess I'm cognizant of the fact that I don't know, Jill. It's I don't feel stronger. Some days I feel weaker because I sit in my emotions, right? But that's not a sign of
I was
weakness.
gonna
But the
say
numbness is
that's not
real.
weakness, not in
Yeah,
my books.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. But it's the numbness. It's you just kind of deaden yourself to everything else that's out there, which isn't a fun experience because like I was thinking the other day, when was the last time I really belly laughed? And in fact, I can tell you when. I was went to a movie and the trailer that came up was for The Naked Gun, the remake of The Naked Gun, and just something dumb came on screen and I laughed out loud and I went, "Wow, I haven't heard that in a while."
Oh.
Well, don't no, it's
No,
okay.
I
These are
just
all coping
yeah,
mechanisms.
no.
It's how you deal with this stuff. It's all consuming. Alzheimer's consumes everything around it.
You said when we spoke last that going through this experience has deepened your sense of empathy
Mhm.
and for others suffering. And I was wondering if, and if so, how that affects you in politics. I don't mean necessarily in a partisan, does it I'm just meaning, does it affect your sense of empathy? How does that impact your political views or your views on politics?
So I am very privileged in my life to have a platform. I am often asked to go on panels or make speeches or be on interviews like yourself. And what I have found in the last year, and it's a direct result of being in the caregiving world and listening and hearing from other families going through similar situations as ours, is I don't miss the opportunity to communicate the realities and the unfairness of how caregivers are treated in the employment world. And that would be the biggest, I would say, learning from my experiences of being more empathetic, meaning because I am not only empathetic to their issue, I can communicate it in a policy way to show the unfairness of it. So I'm beyond empathy. And now I am just fully on outraged by the injustice of what happens to women in their careers as a result of caregiving for parents and or
Mm.
spouses in later life. And that the empathy led, so it's not just, oh, I feel bad for you. It's now, okay, I feel bad, but now I'm going to do something about it. So that's where the politics comes in, I suppose. But I'm not in any position to do anything about it because I have my own responsibilities and I'll continue to do that. But I have a platform. And for example, I'm going to be speaking at a directors conference in Edmonton this coming week. And I'm on a panel talking about what directors should think about. And I'm probably going to go on a rant about how directors have to be cognizant that their employees are going to encounter caregiving and it's $58 billion loss of productivity and women are leaving the workforce and people have to pay attention. And so, yeah, I'll use, maybe they won't invite me back next year. Don't really care. Don't really care.
But you are,
But the message is out there.
as you said, you are getting invited to lots of, you were lots. We haven't spoken since the election. You've
Yeah.
been very, very public and participatory in conversations about federal politics, which obviously contains its own dose of uncertainty right now for Canada. How are you
Mm,
feeling about this moment we're in as a nation? A minority government,
mm.
the way forward with Donald Trump's threats of annexation, looming as a giant unknown. Tell me, just how are you feeling about the uncertainty for our country right now?
Hmm. So one thing I realize is when you're around politics long enough, and I've been around politics long enough, um, it doesn't matter in my world which partisan government was elected. I know everybody, and I'm probably friendly with everybody, I would say. I think everybody could, regardless of your political stripe, they could call on me and I would give them an answer, a response, an idea, anything like that. So when it comes to my feelings about Canada, as a conservative, I'm disappointed that the conservatives didn't take government. I think that's obvious. But as a Canadian, I like the fact that we're all talking about protecting Canada, that we're on the same page. And I'm certainly happy that we finally have a focus on the economy and long term economic issues. So I can find lots of positive in this minority government. But they have to execute on what they're saying they're going to do. And I'll be watching to do it. But I'm also there to help in any way that I can because I love my country. And I tell you something, I don't take Trump seriously on this 51st state thing. I really don't. I can only imagine what it's like to be an official from the United States who encounters this and goes, "Come on, Canada, please don't overreact. Like we're trying here. There's more of us. Yes, he says these things, but please don't believe it and don't ramp him up and don't make it worse. Don't wind him up. Let us deal with this." And that's kind of how I view it. So when I speak to former ambassadors who are friends and speak to current officials from the US, I have an empathy for them. They're dealing with a situation that they have to deal with. And although we do, elbows up and all that kind of rallying cry, it's for the Americans, it's like, oh no, not again. Please stop. Don't remind us of what he says. Because if you ask the normal person on the street, what's the relationship between Canada and the United States? They're going to say, we're family. because we are literally family on both sides of the border.
Would you ever run again? Or do you feel that your role kinda
Sure.
you would?
Sure. I mean, it's the greatest job in the world. But first of all, I lost my riding, so it doesn't look good for me to run again. But secondly, yeah, I've got my obligations right now, and I enjoy it. I love my work at CIBC, and I love the freedom I have as a result to be able to take on a more active role in Bruce's caregiving than a passive
Mm,
one. I no longer think I have to be there every moment of the day, so that gives me a little bit of freedom. But certainly, life is long. And the way I'm built as a person, Jill, is if I feel that there's a great injustice that needs to be that needs to be fixed, that only I can fix, only I understand, then nothing is impossible. And go back to the caregiving thing. If people don't figure out long-term care and caregiving in our country with the dementia tsunami coming our way, I have a skill set that, like Liam Neeson would say, I have a very particular set of skills that can be
mm.
helpful to the country. So, is it an elected way? Maybe. Is it in an appointed way? Maybe. Is it through starting a charity of my own to help people? Maybe. I don't know. So, not going to roll anything out. I will figure out which door is going to be the most impactful way of helping people.
Lisa, I wanna thank you for being so generous with your time and so open about all the unknowns in your life. You really are, an inspiration to a lot of people. I know you've always been strong, but you feel, strong in a a whole spherical way to me now. So thank you
Well,
for
thank you.
this conversation, for both our conversations.
I appreciate you, Jill. Thanks.